What's good, everybody? Pete here at Spawn Fly Fish, and if you've been watching any of the social medias as of this week, we've been chasing some carp in salt water. I know, right? Here's what's been working: a little shrimp, a little ghost shrimp actually. This one has been chewed apart, and if you see, we've got a floppy head issue that we're going to solve on the vise today. So grab your stuff. Let's tie some bugs. All right. In the vise today, we are looking at the awesome, wonderful SA280 from Ahrex. And this is small, size 10. And yes, we're fishing for carp with this fly, but don't let that just, don't focus so much on that. This fly will absolutely smack anything that's in that tidally influenced water, be it cutthroat or anything else that's moving into the brackish and in and out and all that. It just so happens that we are chasing carp, and they love to chase down a little shrimp fly like this. As you can see, this one got chewed up a bunch. The road behind it may have had something to do with it too, but we won't talk about casting today. So if you're looking at this, do you see how floppy that head is? So I did attach this version directly from hook to micro jig shank, a Spawn micro jig shank 60 degree, and it worked flat out amazingly. However, when you strip and let go, sometimes that hook wants to drop farther than the last time, and so we're going to eliminate that today by using Braid to connect that instead of going direct, and we'll get to that. And the reason being, if this lands with that bead, that heavy Spawn bead going all the way down, you want that hook as close to the top where they're first going to suction this up into their mouths. And so that's why we're going to sort of fix that problem that's really not a problem, but has very much that potential to become a problem. So if you're still with us, congratulations, because at the end of this, you'll be glad you're hanging on. So got some thread going, 6/0 uni color, Camel. So this is one of those flies that's overly difficult for carp, but just right because of how many different species you can catch with it. So while I can, let's keep it simple. We've got some Steelhead torch, Simi seal, Spawn Simi seal, UV. Yes, that's important. So we're just going to tie a little bit in here over that bend, like so. Come back, veil the remaining part over, thus. All right, so there's our little get your attention kind of deal, hot spot if you will, all that good stuff. Tie it down very well. You know, considering carp don't have teeth, they're not considered a big toothy critter like a pike or whatever. I don't know what they do with that fly in their mouth, but man, they could sure make a mess of it in a hurry. Tie your flies well. We've got some easy shrimp eyes, size medium, color black. There's so many different color options now from easy shrimp eyes, and they are all phenomenal. I'm just going with this one because it works. So tie that down, and the key here is to really get it strapped down at the bend of the hook. We're just going to remove this little bit with our scissors here. Voila. And by all means, if you want to use some super glue, really secure those eyes in, great. Is it necessary? Nope, probably not. Just go for it. All right, so let me show you now. This is what the underside of that head is going to look like, and that's about it as far as the tricky part of creating that head. We're going very simple at this point. So for today's feathers, let's talk feathers, shall we? I've got a little hen saddle here, and I do mean little. Look at the size of those feathers. Pretty small at the bottom, right? So this is one of those saddles I picked up who knows where and who knows when. Just had to have it. Finally have a great use for it. And for all those that shop the way I do, I'm sure you have something that'll work. If you don't, let's look at what you might have. Grizzly soft tackle, tan. 4B hen saddle from Whiting, brown. We've got some India hen back from Hairline in natural, but you see how different each one can be, but those would work just as well. And then some wet fly hackle again from Whiting. And this one is a pale watery dun. But when you're thinking in terms of shrimp, there can be so many different colors and all that. So don't key in on, man, I don't have those colors, Pete. What can I do? You can do anything you want. Movement matters. How you present the fly matters. What species you're chasing matters. This is going to work. And so that's what I'm tying. So you see I've got 3 of these feathers stacked. I have trimmed the tips. And so I'm just going to get those tied in before I lose the grip on there and they slip out. You don't want that. All right, get those tied in like so. And I don't know about you, but even though it's carp, I'm not tying a fly just because I need something quick to get the job done. Although sometimes I do tie that way, it's not my preferred style. So let's make this thing as pretty as we can, because even though it's a carp, this thing's willing to eat a fly. And I'm very grateful for that fact, and I'll show it to them by tying a prettier fly than what most people might tie for carp. So there we go. We've got our legs tied in there, one coming off each side. It's just one leg, nothing crazy. If there's a difficult part, this will be it. And we're going to get hopefully 2 wraps of all 3 feathers before the legs and 2 wraps after the legs. So let's see how that goes. Let's get this one kind of out of the way as we start. And you see it doesn't want to play, so get all the fibers pointed over the hook bend. Now we'll be able to make that first wrap. After that, should be easier. Not easy, just easier. Alright, there's the second coming through. Take your time, be patient. And again, if you want to simplify this fly, there are a million ways to do that. And by all means you should. Make it your own. Make it work for your fishery, your style of fishing, your style of tying, all that good stuff. Like this is simply a suggestion or a guideline, and then you take it the rest of the way. So you see here how I'm into some fluff. If I were tying this fly for sale or for a photo or whatever it might be, I'm not going to include that fluff. But this is a fly going into my fly box, hopefully not stolen by Josh before we get there. But if it is, oh well, it's okay, because I'm going to have a pile of them. So since it's for me, for my own use, that little fluff, I don't mind one bit. So as picky as I can be sometimes, every once in a while I'll let it go. Today, that fluff is going to be part of the fly. I like it. Alright, solidify all that with some thread wraps. Clean it up if you will, a little thread neck. And kudos to our videographer Josh today. He just wanted to say hi. Hi Josh.
What's happening? This is looking nice.
Thank you. Commentary from the Peanut Gallery, brought to you courtesy of Spawn. 1 whip finish. And 2. Cut. Alright, let's just give it a kiss of some loon hardhead. And since we're on camera, I'm going to just go thin on the coverage of these thread wraps here for timeliness. If I'm tying these at home, I get at least 6 heads tied up and drying, and then by the time I'm ready to start the body, that first one's absolutely stone dry, like it's ready to go. And that would be my suggestion to you at home. Tie a bunch, stage them out, and then let the glue dry and cure all the way through all those wraps to the shank of that hook. Alright, so there is our shrimp head, if you will, or the forward or rear portion of our articulated carp shrimp. We'll come in here in a little bit and we'll trim up those legs. So now we're back to that floppy head issue, right? That's a good way to show it right there. We're going to fix that. How are we going to fix that though? This will be the solution. This is 50-pound braid, specifically spider wire. But why not wire? Well, a couple reasons. Well, using wire, it's going to leave a bigger connection spot. I won't be able to snug it down nearly as much with that knot or anything like that. I want it to sit hidden. I don't want it very visible or any of that. So that's why I'm choosing this material. You could use mono, just tie like a clinch knot right to it and then tie that onto your shank as we move forward. But I'm just going to get this tied on, or wrapped on if you will, going over that hook. I'll pop this out for a split second here, and I'll show you hopefully. I'm just going to go over everything, so I'm going to give myself some more room, open that loop, and then the problem is I crossed one, there we go, so forgive me there for 1 second. So now it's over everything, I can pop it back in, and at this point I'm just going to bring all this forward so that as I pull both ends, I'm not going to trap any of the nice feather there. So as you see, fairly clean. Let me check. Yeah, clean. That's clean as a whistle if you didn't catch. So there we go. Boom, head's done. Pop this sucker out, and we're ready for our next move, which is a spawn jig shank 60-degree micro. So it's micro is a 15 millimeter shank, and of course 60-degree bend. We've got the 7 millimeter spawn slotted tungsten football bead in peach. And now we just need to keep that bead from moving around. So I've got some lead-free 0.025 wire, and you see I'm doing all this before I tie the arm down. There's a reason. Alright, so there's 6 wraps. I'm going to go ahead and trim the front out, round it over, smooth it over on that cut edge with my scissor, and then once I push this into the back of the bead, aka the cavity, do you see what happens? That arm wants to come down. Oh, look at that. If you go 6 wraps, it's going to touch, take 1 off. So now we're at 5. Now I have clearance when I tie that arm down, and so this is where I cut. And let me just round that cut edge like so. Hopefully I didn't jump that out of focus. Push the bead in one more time. Now we're ready to start tying down that arm. And typically, like, this is where I would slip that hook on and we'd be connected and halfway done with our fly. But again, I don't want that droop going on specifically for these fish. So arm is tied down, trim out the tag end, and now we'll solidify everything, meaning the weighted wire wraps and all that good stuff. So angles and then straight on. Angle, angle back, and straight on. And that'll pull all those X-shaped wraps in between the weighted wire wraps, and that lets everything sit where it's supposed to without moving. Alright, so there we go. So at this point we've already got our braid tied onto the head there, and so I want to keep that hook point up like so, and I want this to be very close to touching after I tied it in. So let me get this started and I'll show you how we snug that up. Couple loose wraps, nothing to it. So where this meets right here, I want the front edge of that eye to meet the back edge of our shank, and right there, like you can see, there's not, it's almost touching, virtually touching, but not quite. So now what happens when we turn that, do you see? No drop. It's just going to stay right there, and that's important because as this fly now sinks down and they tip their head down to follow it and cover it with their mouth and vacuum that up, the first thing they're getting in their mouth is the head of this fly, which just happens to contain the hook. Who'da thunk? Every once in a while there is some reasoning that goes along to a design of a fly. So after we've got that tied down, I'm going to bring both of these ends or pieces of that braid back and get a few wraps onto it tied down. So now we've got no way of this coming undone, and we will trim this out, both tag ends, finish securing. And again, if you want to talk about secure flies and strength, this is where you could definitely add some super glue but it's not 100% necessary. All right, so at this point, it's fairly simple. We're just going to repeat the steps of the feather tie-in, the legs. We're going to do that 2 more times now to fill up that shank and call it a day, and maybe even go catch a couple fish. Alright, so again, we've got 3 more feathers prepped and trimmed at the tips. And to make this easier on me and my fingers, I'm just going to turn that hook over, securely catch all 3 feathers at once, get those tied in. Great. Come up. So on this one, since we saw that those feathers don't want to do a full 4 turns, they're going to give me 3. So what we're going to do is move those legs up just a pinch. We're going to get 1 wrap in front of the legs and then 2 past the legs, so that we get the support being on the other side, pushing those legs to keep them facing the head or hook point, whichever you want to call it on this fly. So the leg right there, and do you see how I've got enough room there for 1 wrap of 3 feathers? Tie this on my side and we're ready to go. So as far as the look of those legs, I separate this guy and I can show you quickly before we wrap. So there we go, like so. Like so is a very technical term. You might want to write that down. So there's our first wrap. Keep all those fibers moving to the rear, which ironically is the head on this, so hope it's not too confusing. There's a full 1, so now we'll start the 2 wraps behind. And these feathers, just so you know, there is a bit of a taper in mind when I'm choosing these feathers. So typically if you were tying like a full changer kind of fly, right, you'd have the smallest feathers at the first shank or hook, and then progressively the feathers would get bigger. I'm just going to turn this and finish it on this side. As you move up the shank, your feathers would get bigger and of course wider, different coverage, so you get that proper taper. But this one we are tying a shrimp, so if there's a taper, it would go larger at the head to somewhat smaller at the tail. Not a lot. Keep that in mind. Some of these shrimp, especially the ghost shrimp, there's not a lot of taper in that body. They're pretty much uniform from tip to tail. All right, looking good so far. Let's get 1 more section or chunk of feathers tied in. And 3 more feathers, so we're going to have 9 altogether on this little articulated shrimp. And does it matter? And the answer is yes, it does matter how many feathers. So if you want this to collapse more, have a slimmer profile as it's being stripped, use less feathers. And if you want it bulkier and to maintain that profile, use more feathers. So if I wanted it a little beefier, I'm going to go 5-6 feathers per clump. But 3 really seem to do the job. Last couple times we were out, they really, with carp, they're different, of course, but getting their attention is very important. If you're not getting their attention and getting them to either change direction or swim over to your fly, it's not the fly that they're looking for. So you want to keep that in mind. You need something that is going to draw them over to you at least a little bit. And this thing is an attention grabber, I can tell you that. So there we go, legs tied in. 1 more time, all 3 feathers, get those fibers somewhat trained, heading into the proper direction, and we can begin wrapping. A couple of those fibers got a little bit out of place there. I don't know if you can see that, but we're going to try to sort of cheat it and finagle them into proper position as we go. Well, hook works, if you were wondering. That hook point is some kind of sharp. It works. Right. Try to prevent these quills from twisting, all that good stuff. Alright, so here's where we're going to finish up on top. And once again, I'm just going to get a few of those more wispy fibers with some fluff on it. And I don't mind the look at all. There we go. And again, fishing for carp with shrimp, probably not something you think about every day, but when carp show up in the brackish water or tidally influenced water and they're sort of stranded and hungry and eating and all that good stuff, well, I don't know what else to do but go catch them. So this is what I like to throw for them. Alright, let's see how we're doing here. A little twist, there we go. Alright, whip finish time. Here's the first one. Got a fiber trapped, but we're not going to get too concerned about that. One more whip finish. Yahtzee. Trim out that thread carefully. Don't cut any of those feathers. And it's time for a little more loon hardhead. And for this one, I'm going to go a little bit heavier than we did on that first one because I could leave it in the vise for a while. Let it thoroughly dry. But this is my version of a carp shrimp. So you can definitely make this work where you are, not just for carp, but for a myriad of species. But if you're looking to have a great time when the rivers are a little low and clear, maybe a little warm for chasing trout, and you do for some reason have access to a bunch of these carp, by all means tie this up and go catch a bunch of them. Real quickly, let's look at these legs. So on these front legs at the head, I don't mind the one that's on your side, so I'm just going to match it up to the one on my side, and then all I'm looking to do is cut the next few legs a little bit shorter each time, and we'll get that step down look of legs. And this little guy here in the back on your side is already short and just happens to match up. So there we are, and watch as I turn. No head drop. That is perfect for what we want. This thing is going to sit on the bottom, and then this whole fly is going to kind of sway. They're going to come over, envelop the entire thing. Whoop, up they go. There goes the rod tip. Set that hook as strongly as you can and hold on tight, folks. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you try this a couple times. And if you like this vid, please hit like, please hit subscribe, and we will see you guys on the water.